So tonight I'll sing a song to all my friends, also to those we won't be seeing again, to those I knew and those I still adore, and I want to see.
Mesdames et messieurs, bonsoir. Je vous présente un examen de Gankutsuou, le conte de Monte Cristo. Gankutsuou, a 24-episode series produced by Gonzo in late 2004, adapts the classic French novel Le Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. I probably pronounced that incorrectly. For those unfamiliar with the original work, it is a 19th century tale of lost love, following one man's misfortune and revenge. The story has seen countless adaptations to film and television, but this is the first and only time that the epic has been tackled by an anime. So, without further ado, nous commençons. The basic story of Gankutsuou is not particularly complex. In the distant future, two young French noblemen, Albert de Morcerf and Franz d'Épinay, visit Luna to distance themselves from the bustle of Paris. While there, they make the acquaintance of an extremely wealthy man who introduces himself as the Count of Monte Cristo. After doing the duo a rather large favor and earning Albert's admiration, the Count asks if the debt could be repaid by allowing him to live in Paris. Albert immediately accepts and returns home with Franz. Months later, the Count follows as per their agreement. However, as soon as the Count arrives, the lives of the Morcerfs, as well as the other ruling families of Paris, begin to unravel before their very eyes. Spend any amount of time watching Gankutsuou, and the first thing you'll notice is its unique visual style. Everything from the characters' clothes to the hair on their head is rarely a solid color, but rather a texture, some design or other that stays flat, no matter how it would realistically move. This unusual construction is compounded by the frequent use of 3D backgrounds and props. Personally, I was almost always enthralled with this design. It makes for a show that visually is incredibly memorable. However, it is worth noting that this style may not be for everyone. There are more than a few shots that can be hard on the eyes, and occasionally the CGI is obtrusive to the point of disrupting the scene. But I'll get back to that later. The titular Count of Monte Cristo is another major strength of the show. He's a wealthy, suave, charismatic, vampire-ish being who's generally just really fun to watch. You can't help but look forward to every moment that the Count is on screen. He exudes a presence that makes him interesting and likable, if occasionally more than a little sinister. And I have to give props to Joji Nakata for his performance as the Count. The man has a deep, billowing voice with just the right amount of smooth. I had already been a fan of Nakata for his work as Diethard of Code Geass and Kotomine Kirei of the Fate series, but he did not disappoint with Gankutsuou. It's worth mentioning that I've seen very little of the English dub, but from what I did see, Jamison Price also delivered a strong performance as the Count, though I cannot speak as to the rest of the English cast. As I already mentioned, Gankutsuou is a loose retelling of the original Count of Monte Cristo novel. However, it is nowhere near an exact adaptation. It hits many of the same plot points, but the two stories differ in multiple ways, such as how the Count is presented to the audience, as well as the ultimate resolution of his tale. Several characters have been slightly changed, made more or less important as appropriate for Gankutsuou. Arguably, the setting is one of the most significant changes that were made. The original book takes place during the early 1800s. Gankutsuou takes place in the year 5053. However, I don't believe any of these changes in particular were to the detriment of Gankutsuou as a whole. It tries its best to be something different and new compared to its parent story, and it largely succeeds. Listen, I like a high-pitched female J-pop song as much as the next guy, but I love openings that break that mold. Gankutsuou opens every episode with We Were Lovers, performed in English by Jean-Jacques Burnel. Now, I actually wasn't the biggest fan of this theme for the first few episodes, but as I continued, it grew on me a lot, especially as the lyrics get very relevant to the events that transpire. Burnel also performs the credits theme, You Won't See Me Coming, which was also enjoyable, if surprising in how different it is from the opening. We Were Lovers is a slow, melancholic serenade about lost love, while You Won't See Me Coming is a much more upbeat rock tune that focuses on the revenge aspect of Gankutsuou. While I give props for converting the Count of Monte Cristo into this futuristic setting, some aspects of the original storyline make the transition poorly. You can tell that this is once a story designed for a 19th century setting if you know where to look, because certain plot points just don't add up when you take the new sci-fi direction into account. Especially early on in the series, there are mishaps and drama due to a lack of communication between the lead characters. In the 19th century, completely understandable. In the 51st? Less so. The Society of Gankutsuou is established to have spaceships that can freely roam the galaxy, supercomputer AIs, and of course, radio communication. So why is it that these characters act like they are unable to speak to each other if they are not in physical proximity? Like in some ways their society is old-fashioned, sure, they use newspapers and letters, but it is explicitly shown that they have the ability to communicate across distances. And that is forgotten and inconvenient, and only brought up again when needed for the plot to progress. Additionally, due to some of the changes made to the Monte Cristo story in producing Gankutsuou, a few characters feel left out. While most of them get to be in the spotlight for a fair amount of time, others are unceremoniously dropped once they become irrelevant to the larger plotline, with little to no resolution until the show's final episodes. Ironically, one of Gankutsuou's strongest points is also one of its weakest. The visuals. A lot of the time, most of the time, the show looks tremendous, if slightly off-putting. However, this is all thrown out the window once 3D animation comes into play. Remember, this is 2004 and 5. We have CGI now, 10 years later, that doesn't mesh well with 2D animation. So it shouldn't be too much of a surprise that every once in a while, Gankutsuou looks very bad. There's one particular scene that is the focal point of this complaint. Here, take a look. If it wasn't for this, I would have nothing but good things to say about Gankutsuou's animation. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Despite its occasional flaws, Gankutsuou is a hell of a time. The visuals are, by and large, captivating, the count is a joy to behold, and the overall trajectory of the plot is pretty interesting, taking many pieces from the original story while still carving them up into something somewhat new. So, after taking everything into account, as well as my own subjective enjoyment, on a scale from F to S, I would give Gankutsuou, the Count of Monte Cristo, an A rating. I would recommend Gankutsuou to just about anyone, as long as they can tolerate the visuals, because I know not everyone can. Gankutsuou is available for legal streaming on Funimation, Crunchyroll, and Hulu. With that many options, hopefully there's at least one to your liking. And that'll do it. Thanks for watching, have a great day, leave any feedback in the comments, and see you next time.